All right, guys. So we're in another episode of MC Anime. We're on the 14th episode. I'm MC Anime. We have a fellow co-host with us today.
Hey, it's me, Slagoose, but you can just call me Goose.
So Goose to Goose. Thing is a really good fitting character name for the new co-host. So, do you want to introduce the new topic we're discussing today?
Sure, today we are going to be discussing psychic wielders in anime.
And for anyone that doesn't know what psychic users are, they're the main concept is power over the mind, telepathy, teleportation, moving objects with the mind, uh, ESP. There is lots of subcategories in psychic abilities. That psychic as a whole can also be medium, people that talk to the dead, or read your mind. There's different elements in the community where a psychic is. I feel it's important to know some of those. You don't have to know all of them. So, what do you appeal of psychics in general?
Psychic powers are probably amongst my favorite. Um, just because I like the sort of magic that is associated with them. And just kind of this thought that, like, the brain is such an amazing organ, and to think that there's this potential that could be untapped, where I mean you could do the unthinkable with thoughts, is just it's incredible to me. So I definitely, that's why I wanted this to be the very first podcast that we got to do, um with me, is because I really 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 enjoy psychic characters. So
And for anyone that doesn't know, humans have the capacity of psychic like abilities, but we only use 10% of our brain. So if we actually utilize more percentage, then we can actually get closer to that quote unquote telepathic powers that we could have, but that's not the case. What?
kind of goes to like there's a lot of, a little off topic, but there's a lot of like twin theories, where people who are perhaps conjoined twins, or like identical or fraternal twins sometimes, will say that they can sort of hear or experience what the other twin is feeling or thinking. So it is kind
Yeah.
of interesting. It's hard because there's no measurable data. I mean, you can't hear somebody else's thoughts, so it can't be
Oh yeah.
proven or disproven for that matter. But it is really interesting to think, stuff like that, or like the Mandela effect. How
Mhm.
much we're in control of our minds, but also how much our minds know that we're not even aware of.
Oh yeah, and this it's the state of the human brain in which we don't fully utilize everything that we could possibly use. We're only limited by the 10%, and we don't necessarily know why, which I think is interesting in that aspect. But go back to psychics. The characters that we are analyzing through their psychic user persona are as the following: a Saiki Kusuo from the Disastrous Life of Sakai, Tatsumaki from One Punch Man, Yuu Otosaka from Charlotte, and Lucy from Elfen Lied. So the first character we're doing is Saiki Kusuo. So with Saiki Kusuo, how do we introduce to him, and how does the anime play out for his psychic abilities?
Well, it's really hard to try to explain Psyche K because he can do pretty much anything. A really good comparison I would make is if you've seen One Punch Man, what Saitama is to strength is what Saiki is to telepathy.
Gotcha.
So pretty much if it can be done, and even if it can't, he can do it.
Yeah.
I've seen there's episodes where he rearranges rooms, he completely like destroys walls and rebuilds walls, and freezes time at one point. He has hot pink hair. And that's an unnatural color in our world. You know, most people have black, red, brown, blonde hair, and that is how his world was until he convinced subconsciously the entire universe that hot pink hair was normal. So everybody else's hair started growing in, you know, abnormal colors like purple and blue and things like that. So he just kind of has control over everything. No matter what he does, he can't help but be in control of things.
And for people knowing what the anime is about, he's a high school student with powerful psychic abilities, tries to live an ordinary life by keeping his true nature a secret from the many quirky classmates and anyone else he comes across. And it's very important that the classmates are always putting him in danger or putting him on the alert, because he never knows when they show up. They just show up out of nowhere at random. It's like the Minecraft server. All the different monsters spawn at random places, so you have to be alert when they come around you. What do you think?
I see Saiki as being a satirical comedy. So the other characters definitely they're all very interesting, and they're all stereotypes and tropes. So there's the girl that everybody's in love with except for Saiki, and no matter how hard she tries, everybody's just subconsciously attracted to her except for Saiki, because like everybody else's mental ability is weaker than his, so he can't really be affected by other people. And there's like really, really, really dumb characters and characters who want to be as cool as Saiki, and he kind of just wants everybody in the world to just leave him alone.
Yeah, he doesn't get any peace throughout all the journeys that he goes through. And it's kind of funny because you try to see, you know, with Saiki, his parents were as normal as they can be. They were so normal that the anime actually puts on emphasis. Oh yeah, they're totally normal, and then Saiki as an infant is already displaying sensitive abilities and awareness around him.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting that like he was just born super smart and super intuitive and with all of these abilities, and they kind of just exponentially get stronger as he gets older. But you know, I can't think of a different like all being sort of power that is just born. Most other super powerful ultimate level characters that I know of have all done something to get there. But Saiki is just he was kind of just like born a god and is just in control of everything.
And you know, another note about his psychic powers, you know, he has astral projection. He can also use possession. When projection his astral form, he can take over someone else's body. Bilocation. He also has like clairvoyance, the classic Yeah. Curse, electrification. But he also has like invisibility, mediumship, memory alteration, some mind control. Which I really think it's weird that he has petrification as a power. I don't know why he has the ability to put people into stone. The heck? Does that
Yeah,
make any sense to you?
no, when it comes to Psyche, I stopped trying very early on. I stopped trying to figure out what he was doing and I just watched it and enjoyed it
Yeah.
because there was just so much that he's capable of that I was like, cool, yep, this is fun. I enjoy watching this. And I kind of just gave up trying to understand it because he's too strong for his own good.
Oh yeah,
And
especially when he, for example, when he made like unusual hair color and eye colors commonplace. They actually had an ability called genetic manipulation, so he was able to alter the DNA. And DNA is very, it's a very interesting manipulation in that aspect because if you can change someone's chemical makeup, you basically alter who they are and what they are. That's kind of scary, though. If he made the entire hair color pink and other unnatural colors a commonplace, what else can he do that's just beyond what we can think of?
yeah, and it kind of goes, it reminds me of like Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man gets bitten by a radioactive spider, and then
Yeah.
all this genetic recombination happens, and boom, he can shoot spider webs from his wrists. Like, that's not from a biological scientific standpoint, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
Um, but, and it also kind of begs the question of, is Psyche really in control of everything that he's in control of? Or is he just convincing us as the viewer that he is? But
Well,
because he's so
mhm.
powerful, he is in control of everything. And then it starts going into an inception kind of path,
Yeah.
and that's where I get lost.
Yeah, and the only actual weakness is the antennas or the or things he used for the power dampener. If he doesn't have, if those are like interfere or obstruct it in any way, it can actually make him unaware of what he's doing, and he can lose control not over his body but also his mind and related powers as well. So he actually does have a weakness. The weakness just backfires in him not being able to control anything. That's why you see him as a character wearing the antenna like transmitter power dampeners. That's the only way I can say that's like a unique thing to him, except the pink hair, which he did himself.
So it's almost like he is so strong that his only weakness is his strength.
Yes.
What were the writers on? Like, were I I mean, how do you come up with that sort of idea that, oh yeah, let's make a character that's so strong that his only weakness is that if we don't limit his strength, he is more strong than he was already being the strongest.
It's like when we see Rock Lee wearing all the weights on his body and then he lets them go and he gets faster.
Except like instead of just getting faster, he like
Oh yeah.
breaks the time barrier. Like he becomes the Flash.
Yeah.
Like that's
Force telepathy, immediate, teleportation, thought of graphy, great picture perfect photos just by thinking it, time travel, time leaps. He can even have transformation, shapeshift, morph, even has X-ray vision. I don't know how he does all of this, but also he has a bunch of useless abilities as well. Childification, the power to regress someone's mind to that of a child. So I don't know. I think him as a character is really interesting. He provides not only is he powerful, but he just wants to live his life. He wants to eat the puddings that he always enjoys.
Every time I see one of those, I want to try it, but I know I won't like it.
You want to try the pudding that he always eats?
Yeah, I
And
mean
he can get mad if someone eats it.
they look really good. I mean, I'm that way with rice pudding. I love rice pudding. And there have
Oh
been
my
several
gosh.
times where like it'll be in my fridge and somebody will come home and be like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I ate your rice pudding." And I'm like, "You what?" But I don't know. I see him eat it and it looks so good and he spent how I can't remember how much he spent on that super expensive nice one. Um but it was like I think the equivalent of like $100 or something for some
Yeah.
pudding. And it's like is it really that good? I want to try it, but I have a feeling that I will not like it.
Well, yeah, because who knows what the food tastes like in that universe. And speaking of, Sacred Kai being like One Punch Man, how about we do Tatsumaki from One Punch Man? What's your beliefs about Tatsumaki?
I It's really interesting to me to see the other strong characters in One Punch Man because they kind of all feel like I don't know, like all of the characters in One Punch Man are again like satirical, stereotypical kind of characters,
Yeah.
but and she's just kind of that like edgy goth girl. Um don't get me wrong, she's adorable and I can't help but like her as a character.
Yeah.
But it's also like, of course we have this character in this show. Of course, she hurls around giant rocks and like and I isn't she like really old? Isn't she like in her 30s, but she looks like she's like 10.
I think so. Yeah, she's like older than Saitama and the other people. She's
Yes.
also known as the Tornado of Terror.
Yep.
For anyone that doesn't know how she got that ability, her being the most powerful Esper in the series basically can make she can have all the debris around you and launch it at you. So that's why how the Tornado of Terror was formed. Her psychokinetic output surpasses even uh, Dino Shoop. She's capable of effortlessly stopping a very powerful bombardment attack from Burrow's giant spaceship, as well as sending them back to the ship with the same, if not more, force. So she. Okay, so is that her Tornado of Terror? Does that actually match her personality when she's not in the using the psychic abilities, or is that just what the battle name in battle is?
She I don't know. I kind of see her as being that sort of edgy teen
Mm-hmm.
character. Like if I could compare her, it would be to oh, what's the girl from the Deadpool series?
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Oh,
teenage
you talking about
warhead.
yeah,
Um
the psychic, the
yeah,
support character.
so that's kind of how I see her as being this like bratty sort of teenager who's actually
Yeah.
like a middle-aged woman. But um I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting that
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's kind of has this like pent up anger would then use like all of the
Yeah.
garbage around her because that's pretty much what like all the rubble is that she uses is essentially just garbage. Um so I don't know how I feel about that as a whole, but I think it is it is interesting that that is her power.
Yeah.
um Compared to like the way that she looks, it could be expected that she maybe could like conjure something or use some sort of like otherworldly type of psychic powers, like
Yeah.
Raven from Teen Titans.
Yeah.
But instead,
Well, I
she
don't think Raven had psychic power. I think Raven more had the powers of her father, of
yeah,
demon
but
origin.
I think if I had to classify Raven's
Yeah,
powers, I would definitely.
the powers of Raven is based on her emotions. So if her emotions get out of hand, then you actually see the different emotional power, like colors, such as with her different moods take different forms.
Sure, classify her though as like any sort of
Yeah,
like variety of her power. I'd probably put her in with the psychic people just because like
yeah,
that is like it's brain power unless there's like a dark magic kind of category, but that's I think a bit more niche than
yeah.
just the overarching like psychic. But I don't know, at the same time I feel like this tornado chick is like, I mean, she's just like an airbender.
And yeah, and she and her background as an Esper really ties into her abilities because if any individual who possesses telepathic or psychokinetic powers, and in this there's various races naturally awakened can harness psychic powers. Espers are quite rare, but once they awaken, they have become quite powerful in their own right. And she is the strongest psychic companion in the universe, and also a, I think, yeah, S class rank 2 professional hero in the Hero Association. So
Yeah, she is S class.
yeah, which Saitama's like C class because he doesn't even try. But that's a totally different discussion. That's him being him. And she's also part of. She has an older sister and a self-declared teacher of Fubuku. Fubuku's interesting in that way. For let's see, yeah, Espo. Okay, so she's the teacher of Fubuku, meaning she's having a student named Fubuku, and she teaches her how to use powers as well. But she also has, they're called the Psychic Sisters together, but she's also on her own name by herself, even if she's not classed with her sister as well.
I feel like there's a lot of siblings in One Punch Man. Doesn't it
Yeah, I
also
think
start off with like there's like a brother. That's like one of the first people that Saitama fights is a brother who's like experimenting on his brother and then he like becomes gigantic.
yeah. You know, she's what we have. Like she's, emerald green eyes and green hair. So I really think it's really striking with the green hair with the psychic ability because she's not seen as an esper or a psychic necessarily with the green hair. What do you see with her in the green hair? What kind of character do you see from her?
The biggest discrepancy between her appearance and her actual
Yeah,
traits is not so much how she looks and her being psychic, but
mm-hmm.
what her actual ability is.
Yeah,
I think that because it's on like the blue side of the teal kind of color,
yeah,
I wouldn't picture her waving rocks and air around. Like for
yeah,
that, I would think either like a dark foresty green or perhaps something that's um like a really icy blue. And I
mm,
think she definitely looks a psychic part, but the fact that she's has like wind energy, it just doesn't seem to match up to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, and personality-wise, she's rather brash, moody, hot-headed, impatient, disrespectful to people, especially those who she deems incompetent, intolerant to those she deems imprudent, and also shown she slammed Guinness in a large piece of rubble for retaliating against her verbal abuse of Saitama. So she's very aggressive, very. I don't know. Do we see different sides of her other than that old artist persona? Tough exterior.
I think that like I would definitely see her more with icy blue rather than that sort of teal color, because like you said, she's very harsh and a very cold kind of person.
And anything reminding of her childhood is basically a strong dislike, despising the criminal monsters who involve kids in dangerous, hopeless situations. So, her being a hero and seeing the villains do these things, it brings up lots of, emotional trauma. So she just retaliates with brute force or a more aggressive manner to these individuals. It really says a lot about her as a character. For now, not only she has a reason to be mad, even if it's in the past. Usually, compensating for the past tends to be a really big motivation in doing an action and justifying your actions.
Relation between the way she looks and her trauma, considering the fact that she is supposed to be older, but she looks like a little kid.
Yeah. And that, anime's portrayal of characters and how maybe slow they age or how old they are is a totally different line of continuity issues. They don't look the part at all.
Saitama worked so hard his hair fell out. So
yeah. And I also think the dynamic with Saitama is really interesting as well. You get anything from them?
I don't know. I think Saitama, as he relates to everybody in the entire one universe, is just weird. Like everything is just weird. There's Genos, who is like obsessed with him and is like, master, like teach me your ways. And Saitama basically just did some push-ups and jogged around a lot and somehow is the strongest person in existence. And then, there's other characters like Puri Puri Prisoner, and there's really strange like the guy, the kid with the like inappropriate chin, and there's like big lobster guys. Like there's just so much going on that it's really hard to even try to figure out what any sort of like underlying character relations there are, because even just trying to figure out who the characters are is its own struggle.
Yeah. And, that's a good wrap up what Saitama is and what they represent. We're going to go on to the next character, Yuu Otosaka. And this is the anime Charlotte.
Now, this was the only character that you had brought up that I really don't know much about.
Yeah. He's the main protagonist of the story, a first-year transfer student at Hashirimi Academy. He has the ability to temporarily possess a person for 5 seconds. However, it's later revealed that this actual ability is still the abilities of the person he possesses through possession. Towards the end, he becomes widely known and feared as the One-Eyed Grim Reaper. He's also the younger brother Shunsuke Otosaka, and the older brother of Ayumi Otosaka. So, he's, for the main character, for 5 seconds in the beginning to just possess you, but also steal powers in the process is interesting. What do you think of people of possession and stealing powers? It reminds me of the copycat ability or something like that.
Does he retain the powers after the
Yeah.
5 seconds?
Yeah, he can actually steal the powers as well. Make it to his
Okay.
own.
Yeah, that could be really dangerous, but 5 seconds isn't very long.
Well,
So
at first he only knows of the 5 seconds, but later it's actually a longer possession period. So I feel like the longer he possesses someone's through possession and using the powers, I feel like in the process he's basically not himself anymore because he's someone else. That's what the limitation of mind control is. If you basically go in someone's mind and take over, eventually you're going to be you're not going to be yourself anymore in that aspect.
is it
He has the
possible
ability
that
of someone approximately. Let's see. He uses it to possess honor students during the exams to memorize their answers. Mind gleam and his pupils become like teal. His body becomes unconscious, so it's similar to the mind jutsu of Naruto. He can use other abilities while controlling their bodies. However, the 5-second limit still applies. As if that world is no longer here, it reveals his true identity's plunder, which takes someone's ability away from them. Seems to have no limit to the number of abilities it can steal, which prove useful to plunder every ability in the world. Okay, so the side that we see of the 5 seconds has a hidden side of the plunder. Plunder is also referring as looting or possession. Ability to take over the body. With the user's conscious takes over, and after that, both the target and the user will gain control of the bodies. If the target of plunder is another ability user, their ability will be stolen. The target will not be able to use their ability, and the user of plunder will gain the new ability. So what do you think about that? Plunder being the other aspect.
like a snowball for abilities? Like he can just get one and hop around and get more. I don't know. I feel like that's a little broken, especially since I haven't gotten that this anime is as satirical or comedic as the other ones.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a little broken.
Yeah. And it also reminds me of the All for One in My Hero Academia. I think the one of the first users to develop powers, and he just eventually gave everyone powers until it came commonplace. But he can also steal your ability in a second and also give it to someone else. You know what I'm talking about?
I feel like that is maybe pushing the envelope a little too much.
Yeah,
Like you
I just
can't.
have a similar vibe from that. Because I know mimicry is also a power too, so I think it's more mimicry kind of thing.
I just like to think of psychic abilities as kind of being like this really special knowledge.
Yeah.
You can't unlearn something. Really, I mean, like you could forget it, but you can't take somebody else's knowledge unless you like physically go into their brain and it just doesn't work like that. Like I don't think that you should be able to take away an ability unless there's some sort of physical manifestation that gives cause as to why you lose that ability. like anime and whatnot that have like charms.
Yeah.
Where like there's a physical representation for something. But
Yeah.
if there isn't that physical representation, I don't think that you should be able to just take a power away.
Oh wow! After gaining time leap, he goes back in time and wakes up in the morning before Ami dies. Suddenly stops him from Ami from a classmate, and then on the way home. Oh gosh! So it's really different how he gains different abilities, but he also uses the different abilities. It's like the ability itself is like taking the aspect of the person's mind, and that's persona is left inside him, which is the power origin of the other person.
Like their own entities? Like, does he have all of these different personas like floating around in his head, or does he just get their abilities?
Um, it's really hard to say what plunder is specifically. There's like so much explaining what plunder is. How I feel like in the aspect of plunder itself, there's still the limitation of 5 seconds to possess the ability. But if he copied someone with the ability of time leaping, then for that whatever amount of time, he still has the effect of time leaping in him. So it remembers the effect of the possession in the 5 seconds.
Too complicated. I like the guy who made his hair pink.
Yeah. you, you like Saiki guy with the pink hair?
Yeah, that's easy. That's easier to understand. He can do anything. There are no rules, there are no limits. Like, I don't know. I like the completely unrestricted power.
Yeah.
Because I think once you start putting rules to it, it gets so much more complicated. But you also have to take into consideration, like, are these rules realistic enough that
Yeah.
they're believable within the world? Like, like the whole genetic recombination thing. Is it scientifically accurate? No. But can we understand that maybe, perhaps, science, there's a way that like the genes could rearrange themselves? Like, yeah, I could see it, right? There is genetic manipulation. That's a thing.
Yeah.
Um, but to like steal someone's abilities and bounce around like that is too much for me.
It's too much.
Too much.
So you acting like, but I think it's really interesting how they limit it within the scope of 5 seconds, but that's all only the 5 seconds is all they need. Despite sound like funs and games, it's one of the gravest flaws other than time leap. Each person he loops from, the more his memories fade due to the overload of information he gains from looting each ability. If user able to wield every ability for himself, he'd be a large threat. But there's so much information that he has. If he gets too much, it can be information overload. So basically, it's like when he possesses someone, he takes a part of them with him in his own mind, and that information visualizing is like I think it's the memory of the power itself. Do you think that, or you just think it's totally out there?
I think that it's and I haven't seen the anime in full, so I reserve harsh criticisms for that
Yeah.
reason. But I feel like it's a bit of a cop out that the biggest like limit is that it could be overused, but that there's a time element. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you can you can teleport, but you can only teleport 4 feet. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, sure, you can use these super cool powers, but you can only use them for 5 seconds. It just seems like
Yeah.
there are such better ways to restrict abilities Like
He's not when he steals the essence or the memories of the power itself. I feel like it's a copied version that he retains, that he remembers from the possession, and in that possession, he can perform that power outside of the 5 seconds because he's seen to do these powers. Like when he copies it, he can take it as his own in that aspect. He remembers the power, so his mind is able to take an essence, put the essence into memory, and if the information overload becomes an issue, then he can like pass out or maybe whatever meet the criteria for information overload. And the reason why I chose Plunder, but specifically for him, is it's not a normal psychic ability. He is psychic enough to possess your body, but he's psychic only in that 5 seconds. But he has like a connection. You still have that connection to someone in your memories. So like a friend, and you still have that memory of them. I feel like the power is the memory. Well, that
it would
is
get
Yuu Otosaka. So, are there any other thoughts about him, or are you just like totally mind blown?
it's I have to watch the anime in full now because there's so many little intricacies that I really need to study it and kind of break it down because I have not seen it uh in its entirety from start to finish. However, I have seen Elfen Lied multiple times
Yeah.
from its start to its finish in both dubbed and subbed and like not even English captioning and subtitle. Like I've seen it so many times it's not even funny because it is one of my favorite anime of all time.
Oh yeah, Elfen Lied is really interesting because the beings that have the psychic abilities is that will also perceive as like psych of psychic powers, but they are. I think the vectors is really interesting in that regard as well. What do you think about the vectors?
Trying to figure out like what the whole I feel like there's some backstory that gets left out.
Yeah,
But I first off, I really like the animation of the vectors. I
yeah,
like that it's kind of like a 3D sort of
yeah,
animation compared to the 2D character style. But I don't know. I'd love to have these giant ghost arms that
yeah,
just show up from behind me to do whatever. Um, but it also puts a different perspective on the mind control sort of
yeah,
concept because it's not. She has like Lucy just has a lot of arms. So
yeah.
even though nobody else can really see them, it looks like she's doing all these things with her brain, but in
Well,
reality it's these
the
arms.
vectors are telenetic in nature and origin. They appear to possess. They are the diabolical primary means of defense and more commonly offense against humans. However, it's believed that their real function isn't to kill, but to infect humans with the Diclonius virus, as portrayed by Kurama. And that virus, the Diclonius virus, is a mysterious disease which diagnosed species spread to infect and displace humans through their vectors as a means of ensuring that their children are born as dilomi. So, and these are the beings that have the vectors associated with people like Lucy and other people related to her. And we first see her in the anime uh, escaping the holding cell that they have her in. Like, that's the main introduction that we have. So what do you think of the main introduction when Lucy's going on I guess, the huge epidemic of what happened?
I mean, I love the opening scene. Like I can just, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, like I can see it, and there's bullets flying and there's blood and gore and naked girls, and there's a lot to like about the intro, the intro. Um but I like the fact that it's not explicit from the start that she has these arms.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because typically when we think of psychic stuff, we sort of just imagine like, a glass floating on over.
Yeah.
Like have you ever seen like the kids movie
Mhm.
Matilda?
Yeah.
Right? Like she can just kind of wave her hands and stuff moves around. And that's what it appears to be like for others around Lucy, but in reality, albeit they are uh like telepathic arms, but there is a physical
Yeah.
manifestation in a way of
Yeah.
what her powers are. Um, but I do like that it's hard to understand if she is connected to the arms in any
Yeah.
way or if they kind of have a mind of their own. Like their main job seems to be to protect her, and they do a really good job of that.
Yeah.
But then sometimes they protect her a little too much and
Yeah.
can kind of take on their own sort of personality.
Yeah. And, you know, um, I don't know, because Lucy by herself is the more passive form, the one that's not on the guard, not uh, it's the other side of her personality. She has a split personality, and it really plays out that Lucy's the calmer side, not unknowing of the vectors themselves.
Yeah, she's in her I forget, oh, what do they call her? Niu.
The
Um
Yu, which is the mad form, in her mad form, or Nayu, and it's basically a mystic form, main protagonist, and she's also the queen, Clonius, which is a evolutionary offshoot of the human race. So humans actually have very difficult time comes out into the story. It really plays a vital part in the storyline because you see the past and flashbacks of the childhood applied to present day and everything else. So, what do you take from Lucy with the childhood and everything going on?
it feels as though she was used as like a science experiment and had a normal childhood until something
Yeah,
undisclosed
yeah,
crazy happens. And
yes, yeah. We can just say something of traumatic experience really takes interest of the government into the first episode to basically put her in a cell or a holding facility to withstand her abilities.
And
Something
I
happened
don't
to attract negative attention.
right,
That
I
negative
don't
attention is what got captured.
I don't know why they didn't try to understand it. Um because she's not like violent 24/7. So for her to be kind of chained up in the way that she was is very
Yeah.
strange to me. Um
But it's also the humans not knowing how to deal with it. And I think there's like one professor or scientist that could know, but he also has a traumatic story as well. I think there was a connection with Lucy, with other dim- Myconius individuals that he had a connection with. But even him didn't fully understand everything, so his connection to them was limited. And the Diplomnius Research Institute was the organization that took Lucy and all that. She was lucky that she wasn't in this concussion like state to revert back to Lucy is kind of interesting in itself.
it is kind of interesting to think we have this human like person who has some extraordinary ability. And I feel like there's kind of like three options, right? One, she can just run the world and take over. Or
Yeah.
or she's extinguished. That's another option when humans get scared, is they just kill stuff. Um, but it's interesting to see how they didn't try to figure her out or try to understand things really. They sort of just locked her up. But if we think about another anime that has a really powerful lead, Attack on Titan,
Yeah.
Eren has some incredible powers, but while they are very uh anxious about letting him live really at first, they eventually understand, as he understands how to control his abilities. The people around him learn how to deal with having this
Yeah.
knowledge that he is very powerful. So it's kind of interesting that I feel that Lucy and Aaron
Yeah.
could be kind of peers in a sense and on the same level, but the treatment of them is polar
Totally
opposites
different.
almost. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's a lack of understanding and the hesitant for the alien side to understand him, but they eventually, in the process of understanding him, he also has to basically be in the command of the Survey Corps and the Research Institute and the Attack on Titan. While the Diplonius Research Institute takes a more dramatic and radical approach, they view them as weapons and mass destruction. So those not they after they employ another Diclonius to deal with Lucy, and that really, well, if I can send you a person of your kind to deal with you, then that's the only best hope we have, because for whatever reason we can't handle the situation because you're more powerful than us. So that is the conclusion of this particular episode. Psychic and telepathic and psychokinesis takes many different forms. It's the aesthetic of the mind, how the mind has a mind of its own, and the sentient relating abilities of psychic powers really drives the notion of not only who is control, how they use it, but the interactions and the applications of such powers. Got any closing thoughts?
No, it was really fun to kind of discuss and pull apart these different characters, because when we're told that a character has psychic abilities, I think we have one sort of assumption about that character, but when you really take the situation and break it apart, it's clear that there are so many different intricacies to what it means to be a psychic character.
Oh yeah. So, and with psychic characters comes different versions and adaptations to the power. Though it's like with psychics alone, there's like a subset of like over 25 different abilities and how they're all classified under different like mediums, talking to ghost and all the other types, even possession and taking control of someone's body, having the mind jutsu in Naruto is one such example of telepathic ability of mind control. It really says in itself that, maybe it's not always the person with a spoon trying to bend it with their body or, reading your mind and doing the magician's trick to see what card you have. It's really something that's like more than just in itself as a whole. This concludes with Saiki Kusuo, Disastrous Life of Sakai, Tatsumaki from One Punch Man, Yuu Otosaka from Charlotte, and Lucy from Elfen Lied. Thank you so much for participating in the audience, members, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.